Hello, I'm Rafe from Global Thought and Awareness Broadcast. Our website is globaltab.net, and today we have Aneela Shahzad, an analyst of geopolitics and chief editor of globaltab.net, and she's here to talk with us. How are you, Aneela?
Yes, I'm fine.
Today our topic is Afghanistan, the Taliban, and the US presence in Afghanistan, and we're going to talk about the war on terror. So, Anila, it seems that apparently the Taliban are the main hurdle in bringing stability and true democracy in Afghanistan. What is your view on that?
Well, in my view, this is a major example of manufactured consent by mainstream media. You see, Taliban is a genuine political entity and it represents a major portion of the Afghans. In fact, it's the only party representing the whole south of Afghanistan where mostly the Pashtuns live. The Pashtuns are more than 50% of the Afghan population, and if you see the Pashtuns are supporting a political entity in a way that it is not just strengthened in the south, but it is constantly expanding. Then it means that they have a right to democratically elect them too. But the reason why United States and the Taliban cannot coexist is that the Taliban consider the US a foreign entity that has no right to occupy or control their country. For this, for this reason, the US presents them as a barbaric force and a terrorist, not because they are a hurdle in the way of true democracy.
But aren't the Taliban responsible for all the terror activities that we see being carried out in Pakistan?
This is another basic misunderstanding people often have. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, also known as TTP, is a terrorist organization and it has recruited foreign jihadists just like Al Qaeda. And it has been responsible for most of the terror acts we've seen in Pakistan. But in contrast, the Afghan Taliban is not a terror organization. It's an Islamist fundamentalist political movement waging a freedom war against the US occupation. And it is very local and it does not recruit foreign jihadists.
What do you think is the public acclaim of Taliban?
Well, the Taliban have not actually faced a democratic process because, we can't say that there has been a free and fair elections in Afghanistan because Afghanistan has been a war zone for the last 15 years. But the way we see the Taliban taking one district after another and the way their presence is increasing, one thinks that the Taliban do have a lot of support of the people because they couldn't have expanded a guerrilla war without local support.
You mentioned that the Taliban have support of around 50% of the Afghan population. So, if the US decides to further decrease its influence, what other entities do you think could be there to challenge the Taliban?
Well, yes, the Northern Alliance do represent a big part of the Afghan people, and yes, there are several other tribal leaders come warlords that represent their people. But as such, if we talk about the present government in Kabul, we see that it has absolutely no writ in the country. Even inside Kabul, they are unable to perform because Kabul is terrorized and it's regularly bombed every other day. So there are other entities, but as such, they are unable to perform.
What do you think has been the impact of a 15-year long war on both Afghanistan and the US?
Well, the impact on Afghanistan has definitely been devastating. Analysts have counted over 3 million violent deaths in the last 1.5 decades. Constant bombardment of the countryside, the villages, and the cities, they've destroyed the livelihoods and whatever little infrastructure was there. And as far as development work is concerned, that's simply not possible because the government is struggling for its own survival. It's impossible for government officials in Kabul to move from one building to another without an entourage of bodyguards. So, what can they possibly do outside Kabul? And if we talk about the US and its NATO allies, we don't see any success they have achieved. They have spent trillions of dollars on war, and they have absolutely no control on the country because Kabul has no control. And if we look at the wider geopolitical picture, when other states see that US is losing in Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, they start thinking that they can defeat them too. And the United States is no more seen as the greatest nation of the world.
Mhm. What do you think that this lack of success, as you're mentioning, in Afghanistan could imply upon the future terrorism situation in the region?
Well, first of all, we need to understand that terrorism is a new phenomenon for us here in Pakistan and Afghanistan, but it's not a new phenomenon for the US. They have been making proxy wars by funding and aiding rebel factions ever since the Cold War, or even earlier if you see the history of South America. So the way America conducts war is essentially a pro-terror way. You can see it like this: if the US wants minimum boots on ground, then it has to rely on proxies and it has to maintain a puppet regime in the center and opposing rebel forces that can threaten the regime if they disobey. The only unfortunate thing for the US in Afghanistan was that the major rebel force, the Taliban, they had their own mindset. And as it happens, they don't want deals, they just want complete freedom.
Do you think that the support the Taliban are getting right now is only under war situation? Once the war is over, the Afghan people might not want to see Taliban as their rulers.
Well, this takes us back to the Islamist nature of the Taliban regime, which we saw in their previous 3 year rule. And some people are genuinely afraid of that. But considering the popularity of the Taliban's have gained over the years for their freedom fighting in the last 1.5 decade, and because the people think that they are their only genuine champions, and because of the refusal of Taliban to make any so-called deals with the US for a share in power, all this suggests that they may win a popular vote. And if they do, and if they then again try to impose Sharia, that would be a democratic thing, and the world will have to accept that because that would be the will of the people.
So you claim that the Afghan people would actually want a Sharia government?
Well, if they choose the Taliban and the Taliban stands for the Sharia, that means the people are voting for the Sharia, and that becomes their democratic right.
As we're seeing that the US forces are exiting Afghanistan with time, what are the future implications of the US exit strategy?
The exit strategy would have been a success only if the Kabul government had real power and if they could have maintained a minimal governance in the country. Because without that, they can't help the US and its allies secure some of the economic interests that they came here for. You know, when the US survey published its report on Afghanistan's mineral wealth, and everybody got to know that Afghanistan has trillions of dollars worth mineral reserves, that is the reason why they came here in the first place. So, as long as things don't become feasible in that manner, they can't exit and they can't stay.
If the US leaves, don't you think that other entities might challenge the Taliban?
Of course, the moment US really leaves, Taliban are going to take over Kabul, and all the warlords they will be active again, and there would be a new civil war. This is all very much possible, but it is also possible that the Afghans may have learned from their experience, and that they decide to put down their guns and for once to come on the tables and to decide to share power with each other in a true democratic way and decide to actually control their own wealth and start using it for the benefit of their people.
Where do you see the future of Afghanistan in the next 10 years?
Uh, that really is hard to predict, but if we can be hopeful that the NATO and their other allies like India will leave Afghanistan in the near future, we can hope for an Afghanistan that will be using its own wealth for the development of Afghanistan and the progress of their own people. Because the wealth of Afghanistan, really belongs to the people of Afghanistan and not to the multinational companies who want to extract all the wealth for free. And the only reason why I think the talks with the Taliban are always a waste is that the Taliban's are not ready to accept their bribes, and They're not ready to let those companies take what they want.
All right, Aneela, it was really nice talking to you. We had a very informative session. Hope to talk to you again. Have a nice day.
You're welcome. Anytime.